Welcome to Echoline TV and subscribe the channel for new update. In the quiet world of diplomacy, some announcements hit like an earthquake. They ripple through the corridors of power, unsettling even the most seasoned officials and diplomats, and leaving everyone scrambling for answers. This week, Ottawa was the epicenter. The Canadian capital, usually associated with measured policy and calm deliberation, suddenly found itself at the heart of a geopolitical storm. The Canadian government abruptly changed its transit policies, directly impacting American access to Alaska. The new restrictions came without warning, catching travelers, businesses, and even some officials off guard. The decision, delivered with little warning, sent shockwaves through Washington and left thousands of Americans and businesses in limbo. Suddenly plans were upended, and uncertainty replaced the usual predictability of cross-border travel. What was once a routine rite of passage is now tangled in new, stringent regulations. Travelers who once took the journey for granted now face a maze of paperwork, delays, and confusion at the border. The backlash in the U.S. was immediate and bipartisan. Lawmakers called it a betrayal of the special relationship. Both sides of the aisle expressed outrage, demanding answers and swift action to restore normalcy. The move was framed as more than an administrative update. It was seen as a hostile act, striking at American sovereignty and economic security. For many, it felt like a deliberate challenge to the trust that has long defined the border. For Alaskans, the news raised fears of isolation and economic hardship. Small businesses, already struggling, now face the prospect of fewer customers and disrupted supply chains, while families worry about being cut off from the rest of the country. The world's longest undefended border suddenly felt like a barrier. What was once a symbol of friendship and openness now seemed to represent division and uncertainty. This didn't happen in a vacuum. The US-Canada relationship has faced strains over trade and foreign policy, but this feels different. The abruptness and scale of the change have left many wondering if deeper issues are at play. It directly affects the physical connection between Alaska and the rest of the US, raising questions about trust and the unwritten rules of North American cooperation. The highway, once a lifeline, now stands as a symbol of uncertainty. The fallout has exposed the fragility of this partnership. Decades of goodwill and collaboration are suddenly in question, and both sides are left to wonder how quickly things can unravel. The story is still unfolding, but the first chapter is confusion, anger, and apprehension. Across both nations, people are glued to the news, searching for clarity and hoping for a resolution. In Washington and Anchorage, Canadian explanations are falling on deaf ears. The perception is that a line has been crossed and trust has been shaken in ways that may not be easily repaired. Now, urgent diplomatic efforts are underway to understand the full scope of this decision and prevent a larger crisis. Behind closed doors, negotiators are racing against time, hoping to restore stability before the shockwave grows even larger. What's changed? Let's break down the sweeping new rules that are transforming how people and goods move between the US and Alaska through Canada. Canada's new Northern Sovereignty and Secure Passage Act is a landmark law that completely overhauls transit to Alaska, aiming to reinforce Canadian authority over its northern borders. US commercial vehicles now face rigorous Canadian inspections at the border. These checks are more thorough than ever, requiring compliance with stricter environmental, safety and labor standards, and often resulting in longer wait times for truckers and businesses. A new sovereign transit fee now applies to all commercial goods passing through Canada. This fee adds significant costs and logistical complexity, forcing companies to rethink their shipping strategies. The fee is calculated based on weight, cargo type, and distance traveled within Canada, making shipping via the Alaska Highway potentially unaffordable for many small and medium-sized businesses. The act also restricts certain goods, especially energy products and raw materials. These now require special permits and comprehensive environmental assessments, adding more paperwork and delays. This move directly targets Alaska's vital energy sector, creating uncertainty, potential delays, and raising concerns about the future of cross-border energy trade. Private travelers aren't spared either. They now face enhanced scrutiny at the border, must provide detailed itineraries, proof of funds, and clear evidence of their Alaskan destination before being allowed to proceed. The once fluid border crossing has become both a symbolic and practical barrier, with longer lines and more frequent denials of entry. Canada frames these changes as necessary oversight to protect its sovereignty and environment, but for many Americans, it's a dramatic and unwelcome shift. in cross-border relations. The new rules assert Canadian control over who and what crosses, even if travelers are just passing through on their way to Alaska, making every journey more complicated. For Alaskans and U.S. businesses, the impact is immediate and severe. Supply chains are disrupted, costs are rising, and uncertainty looms over future trade. The era of seamless passage is over, replaced by a new reality of heightened scrutiny and stricter controls at the Canada-US border. Alaska's geography makes Canadian routes non-negotiable. The state is separated from the lower 48 by nearly 500 miles of Canadian territory. Land transit isn't a luxury, it's a lifeline. The Alaska Highway, built during W. is the main artery for goods, food, and supplies. Nearly 70% of Alaska's consumer goods arrive by truck through Canada. Alternatives like sea or air are slower and more expensive. Any disruption means higher prices, shortages, and hardship for Alaskans. The highway is also vital for Alaska's energy industry. Oil, gas, and equipment all move overland. The Trans-Alaska Pipeline relies on Canadian roads for support. Military strategy is at stake too. Alaska hosts key U.S. bases, and the highway is essential for rapid deployment. Canada's new policy makes a foreign government the gatekeeper for U.S. military movement on its own continent. The stakes are economic, strategic, and deeply personal for Alaskans. Disruption here isn't just inconvenient, it's existential. Washington's response was swift and unified. Alaska's congressional delegation called the policy an economic blockade and demanded action. Lawmakers across the aisle framed it as a threat to national sovereignty and security. Senate leaders called for emergency hearings and floated retaliatory measures. Former President Trump weighed in, blaming the current administration and demanding tough negotiations. The White House, under pressure, confirmed President Biden had spoken with Canada's Prime Minister. The administration now faces a delicate balancing act: project strength without escalating into a trade war. Quiet diplomacy is nearly impossible amid the political firestorm. Canada insists the new act is about regulation, not retaliation. Ottawa frames it as a long-overdue modernization, addressing environmental, safety, and infrastructure concerns. Officials argue U.S. trucks must meet the same standards as Canadian ones, closing regulatory gaps. The sovereign transit fee is described as a fair user pay principle to maintain infrastructure. Canada emphasizes this is not a tariff, but cost recovery. On sovereignty, Ottawa is unapologetic. Controlling its borders is a right, not a courtesy. The message is clear: this is responsible governance, not a political attack. This isn't the first US-Canada border crisis. The lumber wars and fishing disputes have sparked years of tension and economic pain. Maritime boundary conflicts have led to vessel seizures and standoffs. The 1990s Salmon War even saw blockades and heated rhetoric. After 9/11, U.S. security measures caused major delays and economic disruption for Canada. These episodes reveal how quickly disputes can inflame nationalist sentiment and test the alliance. Past conflicts were eventually resolved but always left scars. This time, the Alaska transit issue feels more fundamental, touching on sovereignty and the physical unity of the U.S. The stakes are higher, and compromise will be harder. The alliance is being tested as never before. The economic fallout for Alaska is immediate and severe. The new transit fee could add hundreds of millions in shipping costs, raising Alaskan living expenses by up to 20%. Tourism, construction, and retail face supply chain chaos and cost overruns. Energy companies may pause or cancel projects, threatening Alaska's budget and jobs. For the U.S. military, the policy introduces unacceptable delays in foreign control over critical logistics. In the era of Arctic competition, this is a strategic vulnerability. Canada, meanwhile, risks massive U.S. retaliation, trade measures, border tightening, and more. The North American economy is so integrated that a trade war would hurt both sides. Canada is betting on negotiation, but it's a high-stakes gamble. The costs could far outweigh any new revenue. Both nations stand to lose if this escalates. The pressure to find a solution is immense. Both nations now find themselves at a diplomatic crossroads, facing decisions that could redefine their relationship for years to come. Emergency talks are underway, as leaders scramble to prevent economic chaos in Alaska and avoid a ripple effect across the continent. The U.S. is pushing hard for a full suspension of the new policy, seeking to restore the status quo. Meanwhile, Canada is advocating for more limited, targeted exemptions that address specific concerns. One possible compromise on the table is the creation of a trusted corridor for Alaskan goods, or perhaps a jointly managed infrastructure fund to ensure reliable transit and oversight. Such solutions could address U.S. concerns about access and security, while also allowing Canada to maintain its policy stance and save face domestically. However, U.S. political pressure is mounting, with lawmakers and the public demanding a total reversal. Anything less risks being seen as a sign of weakness or a failure to protect American interests. Negotiators on both sides are feeling the strain, with little room to maneuver, and every word scrutinized by their respective governments. The crisis has exposed deep differences in how each country views the border, their obligations to one another, and the meaning of partnership. For decades, the U.S. assumed seamless transit was a given. Canada's recent move has challenged that assumption, signaling a shift in priorities. Rebuilding trust between the two nations will take more than a technical fix or a simple policy change. It will require a broader, more honest dialogue about sovereignty, reciprocity, and the future of the alliance, one that addresses both practical needs and deeper values. The outcome of these negotiations will shape North American relations for years, influencing trade, security, and cooperation on a global scale. The stakes are not just economic, they're about the very nature of the partnership and whether it can adapt to new realities while preserving old bonds. The world is watching closely, waiting to see if these old friends can overcome their differences and find common ground in a rapidly changing world. As negotiations begin, one question looms: is this a temporary crisis or a permanent rift? If it's a hardball tactic, a painful deal is possible, perhaps even strengthening the alliance. The optimistic view, shared interests and deep ties will force a resolution and a stronger partnership. The pessimistic view, Canada is asserting independence, signaling a deeper divergence from the U.S. If so, the Alaska issue is just the first symptom of a broader split. The outcome will define the future of the world's longest, undefended border. Is it a symbol of shared destiny, or a relic of a bygone era? The answer will shape North America for decades to come.